Since taking both chambers of Congress and the White House, Republicans haven't exactly been racking up a lot of wins on policy. Now, look, one reason, of course, is that they've got a very thin majority. So the Democrats do have their powers of filibuster. Now, if the Republicans were to have a filibuster-proof Senate, well, then things might be a little bit different. Now, even though they haven't had a lot of legislative wins, they actually have had some other wins. For example, they've eliminated a lot of the previous administration's executive orders on climate change, moved to deregulate industry, and actually did deregulate some industry. And, you know, other, I guess, not really accomplishments, but they're rolling back to previous administrations' accomplishments. But nonetheless, they've still fallen behind on their legislative agenda. And so, in response to that, the donors happen to be pissed. According to Politico, tensions reached a boiling point at a recent dinner at the home of Los Angeles billionaire Robert Day. In full view of around 24 guests, Thomas Wachtell, a retired oil and gas investor and party contributor, delivered an urgent message to the night's headliner, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Now, what was his message? Get on your knees. I'm sure there was plenty of that there. No, his message was, hey, Mitch McConnell, do something. Just do something. Wachtell, who was given tens of thousands of dollars over the years to Senate Republicans, recalled that McConnell responded defensively, saying, well, passing legislation, it takes a little bit of time. I know, I shouldn't do that. And he said that President Donald Trump didn't seem to understand how long it required. That part is true. President Trump doesn't understand anything about passing legislation. He's not interested in passing legislation. He's interested in just winning. We know that already. Now, Wachtell said, quote, anybody who was there knew that I was not happy. And I don't think anybody was happy. How could you be? Now, Wachtell has given over $2,000 to McConnell, but has recently, because of his unhappiness, stopped donating to Senate GOP causes. He said, you're never going to get a more sympathetic Republican than I am, but I'm sick and tired of nothing happening. Oh, boo-hoo. So, now, this is very interesting. Basically, what he's admitting is that he paid Mitch McConnell to be his little bitch and to give him the kind of policies that he wants. And Mitch McConnell is not delivering. But no. Nobody believes that, or nobody that ever gives money expects anything in return. No. People get mad at me for saying that. Like, oh, how dare you? How dare you impugn this, the motives of these good senators or these patriotic donors that are just trying to get their voice heard in our political process? Yeah, okay, man. It's also kind of funny how Politico doesn't even mention that, as if bribing politicians is literally the most normal thing in the world. In fact, it's being presented as, hey, the donors paid us for this, and we're not getting our return on investment. The donors aren't. That's what it's presented as, so keep that in mind. And by the way, that is the very reason that we need to get money out of politics. But anyway, the article continues. Some of the party's most elite and influential donors have spent the last 8 years plowing cash into the party's coffers in hopes of accomplishing a sweeping conservative agenda and undoing Barack Obama's legislative accomplishments are now closing their wallets. The backlash is threatening to deprive Republicans of resources just as they're gearing up for the 2018 midterms. Party officials are so alarmed that North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis, who oversees fundraising for the National Republican Senatorial Committee, told his colleagues at a recent conference meeting that donations had fallen off a cliff after the Obamacare flop. The committee's haul plummeted to just $2 million in July and August, less than half of what it raised in June. It's almost like they're doing as bad as the DNC. DNC is doing awful. But basically, since they could not repeal the taxes in the ACA and giving their donors a giant tax cut that they want, the donors are like, hey man, you failed. Sorry, no cash for you. Now, they don't realize that the ACA repeal failed because it was super unpopular with the voters. had a very low approval rating, and actually would have caused a lot of Republican losses in the midterms. But they don't care about that. See, the donors, again, all they wanted was their gigantic tax cuts. And with the ACA repealed, and mainly those taxes in the ACA repealed, they would have saved millions of dollars. Now, here's a quote here from Dan Eberhardt. This is a Houston-based energy executive. He says, when you're in a business and you tell your stakeholders you're going to build a building or something, you have to follow through. I can't borrow money to build a building and then not follow through, which is what these guys are doing. He said he's spoken to 4 Republican senators over the past month to express his displeasure, mostly over the party's failure to repeal Obamacare. So, look, you have to remember, these are the guys that own the Republican Party. They're also the ones that give no fucks about you. They don't give a shit about you, and they pay the politicians who also don't give a shit about you to do terrible policy like the repeal of the ACA. Now, does that mean the ACA is perfect and awesome? No, it doesn't. There's actually a lot of things that we could do to fix it, for example, expanding it to a Medicare for all system. But this is not the direction they wanted to go. Again, they wanted to go in the direction of where, hey, I've got mine, fuck you, I want my tax cuts, I don't want my money to go into those poor people. No, that's not what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in poor people, unless those poor people start giving me a paycheck. At least that's what the congressmen are saying. Now, in fact, the article notes that in the world of campaign politics, big donors have long been known as gripers, an exclusive group accustomed to stroking and attention. So that kind of shows you how they're being referred to by the politicians. Now, they apparently bitch when they're not getting stroked hard enough. And believe me, stroking seems to be a very fitting description of what the congressmen do for these donors. But their view is essentially, hey, we're more important because we give you all the money. And if that isn't reason enough for you to support campaign finance reform, I don't know what is. I mean, look, I thought here in America we were all supposed to have an equal voice in our politics. But of course, we haven't had that for a very, very long time. We certainly don't have that now. And I don't remember a time where we ever really had that. Now, like I said, the donors, they're getting used to, or they're used to getting stroked all the time. And fundraisers then get their money, right? However, now, this year, veteran fundraisers are saying that they're having an unusually hard time setting up meetings with major contributors, lining up checks, and organizing events, which basically has the party now shamelessly resorting to begging their donors to stay. And they're having very, very little results. On Monday, for example, Trump met with the party's most prominent donor, Las Vegas casino mogul Sheldon Adelson. Now, Adelson, not very happy that the president failed him on his campaign promise to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, I don't know how much that matters. Why would you care about that? But okay, whatever. He's not happy, right? Not only that, but in the wake of an establishment-backed candidate's loss in Alabama, that would be Luther Strange, that lost to Judge Roy Moore. Basically, there are people that are, again, very, very unhappy in this. These donors are. In fact, you had a top McConnell political lieutenant named Stephen Law holding a series of talks with key benefactors. Now, this is, I'm going to give you not necessarily a quote, but an explanation of what one of the donors thinks. This is Bruce Rastetter, an Iowa agribusiness mogul who's funded a long list of Republican elected officials. He said that he's informed his 2 state GOP senators, Chuck Grassley and Joni Ernst, that he would not donate to Republican senators unless they pass new legislation or get new leadership. One seasoned GOP fundraiser forwarded along a curt email from a sought-after donor. The GOP leaders should know no movement on a remaining agenda, tax reform, infrastructure deregulation, etc. means no funding from supporters like me. It read, no meetings, calls, contributions until we see progress. Huh. Now, again, it's not just the big donors. The figures turning off the cash spigot range from both mid-level donors to some of the most generous contributors whom the party has long relied upon. Among those who have been cooled outreach are venture capitalist John Childs, real estate developer Harlan Crow, and retail executive Lex Wexner, according to fundraisers. All of those people have donated millions of dollars to the Republican Party over the years, and they have said no more. According to Roy Bailey, an influential Dallas-based GOP bundler, he says, quote, "I think major donors are tired of writing checks to a do-nothing Congress." Well, I can understand that. Now, some are even turning away from the Republican Party and are now going towards Steve Bannon. Now, Bannon, he's been recently meeting with contributors. He says he wants to go to war with the establishment in the Republican Party. So what he's doing is he's sidling up to the donors and saying, hey, man, you're sick of the Republicans not doing anything in Congress. Help a brother out. I can get some people elected. Then we can get your agenda rolling. In fact, he's looking to establish his own finance network to fund an effort to unseat Senate Republican incumbents in 2018. Now, just imagine the kind of people that Bannon would support. But hey, look, I know that some of these far-right candidates haven't necessarily had a lot of luck in recent elections. I mean, you can, for example, look at Christine O'Donnell, by the way, who is not a witch, just to see how well they've done putting up those non-establishment candidates. But I wouldn't write Steve Bannon off now. For one, I mean, there's an anti-establishment wave that has been hitting in America. Now, the Democratic Party did not capitalize on this wave. They chose the establishment, and they got their asses handed to them. So I think it would be smart for the Republican Party to go with more anti-establishment people. Again, let's go to Alabama with Luther Strange and Roy Moore. Roy Moore he was a very anti-establishment. He's kind of or not kind of, but he's also a super racist. And he's got a million other problems with him. But he ran against the establishment. And guess what? People are tired of the establishment. But not only that, but look, midterms, what he's aiming at, have a very low turnout. Now, if that continues to hold true in 2018, then there is a possibility that there could be a wave of Bannon-backed conservatives winning primaries. At least winning primaries and possibly getting into office, depending on whether the Democrats are running establishment candidates. Now, hopefully that does not happen. Hopefully the Democrats are smarter than this and actually run progressives. But we'll have to see what happens there. But the overall point here is that the Republican Party, or I'm sorry, the Republican former GOP donors are fed up with the Republican Party, with the Republican establishment. They want their deregulation, they want their tax cuts, and basically they're willing to go to anyone they can to get them, whether it be a far-right candidate or an establishment candidate. The donors don't really care so long as they get their money. And that's what's important here, because it really shows how much money plays a role in our system and why we need to get the money out of politics. With these donors having so much control over where the party goes on policy grounds, look, we've got the same problem in the Democratic Party with the donors also, and some of these donors give both to Republicans and Democrats, having too much control over our political system and over where the party goes. You eliminate the money and you eliminate the problem. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.